I'm Matt Horak. I'm a comic book artist. I've primarily worked with Marvel. Drew an issue of Magic last year, Punisher, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Black Panther, Star Wars, a whole bunch of stuff.
Nice. So what got you into comic books?
I always liked to draw, and then once I saw that drawing comics was a job that people had, then that was kind of it. I mean, I grew up on newspaper comics and then got into Tintin books. That was kind of one of the first comics I really got into. And then I was just looking for any comics. At least covers, some interiors, you know.
Cool. What about the Rick and Morty?
Yeah, that was the two connecting covers for issue 50.
Cool. So what kind of liberties did you have with deciding what characters go in on that cover, since there are so many different versions you can create?
I just did whatever I wanted, honestly. I had initially drawn it as a page of Rick's and Morty's together, and then sent that to Oni, kind of because I was like, hey, I'd like to draw some Rick and Morty. And then they hired me to do the covers, and they asked me to do two separate connecting covers, one with all Rick's and one with Morty's. So I took that original drawing and scanned it and then erased them out and like made two separate ones and then filled in all the gaps. And in the original image, there were a few like licensed characters versions of Rick and Morty. So I did take those out. That was the only thing. They didn't ask me to, though, but I figured it was smart to do that ahead of time. And I think with the covers, like, it's not as important that it's in continuity or anything like that. So
Very cool. So what's it like working with Marvel?
it's fun to work on characters I've loved my whole life, you know what I mean? You know, and every job's slightly different. Every writer's different. Editors are different, you know, so some are more strenuous than others, but in general, it's pretty good.
Cool. What's like a normal day in the life of an artist doing this for a living?
Well, it depends, you know. Every day is a little different. Depends on how hard the deadline is. Depends on if I'm in the midst of deadlines, you know, I'm probably on my fourth or fifth 10-hour day in a row, you know, and you come in, you sit down, and you pick up right where you left off. But then other times it's a bit of a working yourself up to it. There's definitely days where I come in and I futz around with emails and then maybe do a couple layouts or do a couple sketches before I really dive into whatever thing I'm maybe working on. So at times it's the same old, but then at other times it's always different. So
I know with the writers, they're usually doing maybe 8 months to a year in advance. What's that process like for you between like creating the comic to distribution?
Seeing it on the shelves. Well, like the Flash Gordon story I did that's coming out in April, I finished that 8 months ago or something like that, and I had a lot of time to do it. But Marvel often is behind schedule, or I have, you know, 3 weeks to draw 20 pages or something like that. I think the most I've ever had with a Marvel project is 5 weeks, you know what I mean, to draw 20 pages. Wow. Yeah.
That seems like, I mean,
it's not enough time. It's not enough time.
Wow.
But it's the nature of periodicals or whatever. And I've had projects that I finished the pages and then I want to say 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks later, the book's on the shelf. So
whoa,
that's an extreme situation, though. That doesn't happen very often. So, but it is always cool. And there's always the things that, you know, like I said, when it does have a longer lead time, you're like, oh, that's out. I forgot I did that. that was like 2 projects ago or whatever. Well, and there is a bit of sometimes you put all these weeks or days into drawing it, and then it's done and it's gone, and then it comes out, and then, you know, after that week, people forget about it. So it's a weird existence sometimes, but then sometimes things stick and people keep coming to shows and telling you how much they loved it. So
everyone's got an opinion, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Like critics or
I mean,
the internet?
I take it with a grain of salt, I guess. You know, if it's a valid complaint, then I'm going to try and use it. I certainly have criticisms of my own work, you know. Half the time I can't stand it until I look at it a year later and be like, it's fine. When something comes out, I definitely want to have some kind of, want to see some kind of reaction, you know. You're doing it for people to read, so it is a fine line to walk of reading reviews or ignoring them or stuff. So go follow me on Instagram at HorakMatt. Buy my comics. Flash Gordon Quarterly number 6, I think, is out in April. 6 or 7, I'm not sure. Buy my old books, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Magic.
you heard any rumblings about Marvel wanting to do the Spider-Man Deadpool movie?
No, I don't know that they would do that. I don't know. It would be cool. It's one of the fun things. That was one of my favorite projects I got to work on because it is funny having with Deadpool around. Spider-Man becomes the straight man when he's usually the comedian. So that's always fun. Yeah, there's definitely something they could do there. But
Well, thank you so much.
no problem. Thank you.